So far, on Mysteries of the Church, we've explored the phenomenon known as stigmata, revisiting that historic day at Calvary where Jesus himself was crucified, and consulting both the scientific community and historians, we search for an explanation. Two fascinating accounts of stigmata were suffered by Padre Pio in 1918 and Therese Newman in 1926. Though both stigmata occurred during the same time, neither host was aware of the other, and the two accounts were as different from one another as the bodies that this was happening to.
Now, as far as we know, Padre Pio of Pietrelcina, the holy Capuchin who's now canonized, he is the first priest in church history who had a stigmata, and he suffered immensely because of it.
Padre Pio's account of stigmata was quickly confirmed, while in Newman's case, the Church is still uncertain about the validity of her story.
Probably the best case is St. Francis, who, when he experienced the stigmata, had a companion with him. The companion did not see this six-winged seraph, but he did see the wounds. And the companion, especially in Francis's elder years, after Francis had basically become blind, this companion had to dress and undress St. Francis from time to time. And it's during those instances when he saw the side wound. It's very difficult to keep the hands and feet a secret, especially if one is wearing sandals, and especially if one shows their hands. But there are ways to conceal it. Long sleeves, for instance, or gloves. So that it's very easy to go through life without letting anybody know that this phenomena has visited them. On the other hand, there are those who, for all of their abilities to conceal their wounds, word gets out. This is evident in the case of Padre Pio. Padre Pio is one of those stigmatics of the 20th century who, when he received the gift, almost immediately his fame spread throughout Italy and southern Europe. This made his contemporaries very cautious. As a Capuchin friar, he would have been able to travel around Italy to preach, but no bishop in Italy allowed Padre Pio to come into their diocese to do this, in part because they were a little concerned about his fame, the fame that was being spun out of his stigmata. We know today, of course, that the stigmatic wounds that he received were concealed as best he could, but as an active preacher, as someone who said Mass daily, as someone who encountered people who visited his monastery from time to time, there was really no concealing them. And so his fame spread regardless. And of course, today he is a saint.
But how is it that one story is believed to be so factual and the other a fake? In 1911, Padre Pio first wrote of uncomfortable pain in his feet and swelling red bruises through the palms of his hands in a letter sent to Lamis, Italy, addressing Padre Benedetto, Pio's superior and spiritual advisor. It wasn't until 1918 when Padre Pio offered himself as a victim to end the First World War that he had a vision and experienced transverberation, another stigmatic sign. Transverberation is the piercing through one side, forging a union of love with God. In a state of ecstasy, Padre Pio witnessed another vision of Christ, this time leaving him with all the physical marks of stigmata. The wounds remained open and visible until his death in 1968.
He had very unique wounds, open, bleeding every day, profusely on Fridays, and never infecting. The incredible thing about his stigmata is it never infected, open wounds.
Meanwhile, the less creditable account of stigmata occurred in 1926. A member of a large but poor Bavarian family, Therese Neumann supposedly received her first sign of stigmata, a vision followed by a secret wound above her heart. The young girl suffered terrible misfortune after a paralyzing fall left her bedridden and blind. In 1925, a year prior to Therese's stigmata, she claimed that Saint Thérèse de Lisieux called out to her and cured her paralysis and restored her vision. Years later, Therese Neumann gave credit again to the saint when she was miraculously cured of appendicitis. The mark above Therese Neumann's heart appeared there again after a vision of Christ. More visions of Christ followed, each time leaving her with another mark of stigmata. Neumann claimed to have wounds on her hands and feet, as well as blood running from her eyes. However, there's much speculation surrounding the authenticity of her wounds.
One of the stigmatas I saw was the fraud. The person was inflicting it on themselves. The other four, the people were absolutely sincere, very devout, and very suggestible people.
I think to try and get a handle on the truthfulness of stigmata, I think there needs to be some sort of determination by a church official. Clearly this is, whether it's a physical stigmata or spiritual stigmata, having some sort of deep contact with the divine requires a kind of authoritative pronouncement.
So the church knew this long ago. As a matter of fact, there was a time when there was an excommunication, an automatic excommunication, on anyone who revealed that they had a stigmata. It was a papal excommunication. So there hasn't been a lot of enthusiasm about this.
So were these people blessed or cursed by stigmata? Which stories are real and which are not? Stigmata has baffled the world throughout history, and though we dig deep, it's possible we may never answer the questions to this strange phenomenon. Farewell, until the next time on Mysteries of the Church.